Chris from Robinhood. If you guys can just hang tight, and if somebody wouldn't mind in the chat, if you could just let me know if you're able to hear me, that would be helpful since we had trouble. Okay, thanks so much. Okay, just hang tight. I'm going to get my colleague Kat in here. So yeah, just hold hold tight. One sec. Cool. For anybody joining, oh, perfect.
Yay! Oh. I had two windows up. I'm sorry about that. But we're in. Everyone wake up.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, everybody, thanks so much for hanging in there. First and foremost, thanks for joining us this afternoon. We'll do a couple of quick introductions here, and then we can get things started. So my name is Chris Geringer. I'm one of the university recruiters here at Robinhood. I've been here now, gosh, almost 2 months, so still relatively new. Just for everyone's knowledge, I support all of the front-end engineering for both intern and new grad. So that's iOS, Android, and web. And I will hand it over to Kat.
Hi, everyone. I am Kat Creamer. I'm also on the university recruiting team. So happy to see all of you here on a Saturday. And I'm supporting our data team's recruitment for interns and new grads, data scientists analytics, our brokerage analytics. And I will soon be also supporting our product design, internship recruitment, as well as our marketing content and communications. Those two non-technical teams will be recruiting a little bit later this year. But yeah, we're super excited. I'm going to share my screen because today we're going to talk about resume tips and tricks and answer any questions that you have. So feel free, drop them in the chat or the Q&A function, and we'll have plenty of time at the end. All right. Can y'all see my screen?
I think we're good. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Kat, for getting that going. And again, appreciate everybody for being here, especially on a Saturday. So like Kat said, we're going to go over some resume tips. And then at the end, we'll have some room for Q&A. So the layout for the day, we've got just like general tips and tricks. There's like different, obviously, content sections, different sections within your resume. We're going to talk both non-tech resumes and tech resumes. And then again, at the end, we'll have some time left over for any Q&A. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people here in the chat with the yeses. We've got the Q&A function there. I think it might be best just to kind of consolidate and put all the questions in the Q&A section so that we can easily consolidate those when we're done here. So, all right, well, let's get moving forward then. Let's see. Sorry, there we go. Oh, there, it's going. Perfect. Great. So these are just general tips and tricks. Obviously, I think a lot of you already know that we like to have resumes as one page, right? And that's usually very easy to do for undergrads and even graduate students. Realizing if you're a PhD, you may have a lot of research or papers, right? And that may be something that would push it into a second page. But in an ideal situation, one page is the goal. A lot of that is just the easeability of read for a recruiter. Also, when you're looking at applicant tracking systems, we as recruiters can easily see everything about your background and if it's there in one page for us. So as well, the second point here is saving in PDF. This is really, really important. As you can see, it says it locks in your format, but Also, it just prevents anything from ever happening, right? If you save it in Word, then things can happen, and by accident, those things can happen, right? So again, just remember, especially when you're submitting resumes into for jobs, applicant tracking systems, that those are in PDF. The nomenclature, right? Make it very simple, right? With your first name and your last name as the title. I know some folks will want to add additional, like, security engineer, things like that. That's okay, right? But I think that sometimes you get yourself in a spot where maybe you send that resume to somebody and it's maybe not for a security role, for example, and then that can kind of be a bad look for you. So if you just keep it really simple, first name, last name, as a title for your resume, that will really go a long way for you. Next thing here is like just using simple and easy to read fonts. This is maybe not a shocker to you on this, but for us as recruiters, we've seen all kinds of resumes, especially any folks that are in design. I realize you may want to make your resume a little bit fancier, so to speak. But again, just remember, you want to make it as easy to read. So because recruiters are looking through lots and lots of resumes. And so we want to be able to catch that stuff and find the information we're looking for as quickly and as easily as possible. Next thing here, within each section, really list the experiences in reverse chronological order, right? So we're looking as recruiters, what is the latest thing that you've done, right? So what was that internship maybe that you just finished? We want to see that first, right? Not necessarily that first internship you did and going that way. So again, just reverse chronological order. Same goes for education as well, right? If you happen to be a graduate student or PhD, right? The current degree plan first, and then everything else below that. Proofread. This, I cannot say it enough. My recommendation to you is obviously proofread it yourself. Obviously use things like Grammarly, but more importantly, get other people to look at it, right? Use your career services office, use your friends, right? Use your family, have them read it. And so, for example, when somebody sends me a resume for review, I'm literally I quickly read through it, but then I go back and I'm literally word for word looking at that resume. And that's the kind of level that you're asking of someone else and that you would want of someone else. And that goes not just for spelling, that goes for punctuation, structure, spacing, all of those sorts of things is what you really want to make sure that you're proofreading on that resume. And then next thing is, do you need to trim it down, right? And again, we're trying to get to that one page. So, here are some tips. Obviously, avoid listing anything that's too personal. You don't really need that on the resume. And having a headshot or photos. I realize, especially in our international students, I know that's kind of tradition internationally, but you don't necessarily need that here. If it works for you, right, in this one page and you just really are sold on that, that's okay, right? But just also keep in mind that as you submit resumes into these applicant tracking systems, it's trying to parse all that information and create that profile for you. So things like photos can really mess that up. We know it's not your intention, right? So these are just things that you may be thinking are going to set you apart. In actuality, they're kind of doing you a disservice, right? So again, just different things to be thinking about as you're trying to trim that resume down and make it one page. And then lastly, we really, really encourage you to really cater that resume or create that resume for that company and or for that profile. So earlier is my example with security, right? If you're really looking for a security role and maybe you're also just looking for a general back-end role, it would really do you good to have separate resumes that are really speaking to your experience in those respective areas or highlighting those internships or projects that you've done. You want to do everything that you can to stand out, right? Again, because there are hundreds of folks applying for these roles. And if you can find a way to stand out, it's just obviously going to increase your odds as a candidate and potentially getting that role. So those are just a few of our general tips and tricks. Again, we have Q&A, so we can definitely answer more if anybody has questions on things. But that'll at least kind of get you started for the time being.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much, Chris. Really good general tips. I'm going to kind of dive in a little bit deeper on some of those tips that he's already shared. So we're going to go through three of probably the most important sections on your resume. The first is your header, then your education, and then your experience section. So within your header, this is really going to be at the top of your resume. This is where your name and your contact information should definitely be. So a lot of times, candidates will have their name be the largest font on their resume, which is totally okay. Just making sure you keep it to that one page. From there, your contact information. So the best way for recruiters nowadays is typically via email. So make sure that whatever email that you actively check, especially during fall recruitment. So if it's your personal email or if it's your university email, I would highly recommend to select one, as well as when you're applying, make sure you use just that one email address that is linked as well on your resume. And that'll also be the email that you want to continuously check. I would also say just when you're checking your email, check your promotions folder too. I know a lot of times, depending on like the applicant tracking system that is used, like for instance, we use Greenhouse. So a lot of times our Greenhouse emails get sent to the promotions folder. It is just something that Greenhouse has been kind of glitchy with, honestly, for years. So while you're in fall recruitment, just check your inbox and your promotions and or your junk mail, just so you don't miss anyone's emails. Make sure your phone number is on there too. And when you have your phone number on your resume, that's a good indication that a recruiter will probably call you at some point in time. So make sure that your voicemail box is set up, that you don't have it full, so we can leave you a voicemail, especially if and when that good news comes, when we're ready to provide you an offer. And then lastly, any type of personal or professional website that you might have. LinkedIn is a great one. So having your LinkedIn URL in your header, if you have a GitHub or another personal website, maybe to an online portfolio or a showcase of some of your technical projects or works, or maybe you just have a personal website. So having those URLs in your header are also really great as well. So here's just a general example: first and last name, email address, phone number, and then the LinkedIn URL. Oh, sorry, my mouse is very sensitive. So after this, your education section is going to be the next section that we typically want to see on an intern or a new grad candidate's resume. And primarily because that's going to be one of the key things that we're looking for is what is your degree, as well as when are you graduating. So in your education section, we recommend listing your university, the city and state, the degree or degrees, minors, certificates that you're currently working on, and also your graduation date. As Chris mentioned, it's really important to list these in reverse chronological order. So your most recent or your current first, followed by ones that you have already completed. And when a lot of times, I think just the biggest feedback is candidates will have all of this information in their education section, but then they'll have their date range. They don't have their expected or anticipated graduation date. So if you have one of those, definitely put that month and year expected graduation date on there. Some other things that we look at could be GPA, relevant classes that you've completed and or are currently taking. In your education section beyond that, I know that we've also seen examples of, depending on room on your resume, if you don't have a lot of space, you can put academic accolades, so maybe scholarships or awards that you've won, organizations that you're involved in. Again, it just all kind of depends on space. So this is just, again, kind of the most generic and general things that we want to see on your education section. So here's a good example. Again, San Jose State University, San Jose, California, working on a major in computer science, a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, listed their minor, their GPA, and then they have their expected graduation date. Awesome. So we're gonna keep going, and the experience section, this is really the bread and butter or the meat of your resume, where the majority of the space is going to be taken up. So just to get you started, again, that reverse chronological order is the way you want to go, having your most recent or current experience first and work backwards from there. So just some general info that we want to see: the name of the company, the location, so the city and state, the job title. So if you were an intern, a marketing intern, if you were a software engineering intern, it's also really nice to see maybe what team you were on. And that's also a really good indication. So a software engineering intern on the platform team, that's another great little key information for us. The date range, so month and year to the month and year, or if you're still working there. And then typically 3 to 5 bullet points. We call these accomplishment statements, and we're going to get into what those look like in just a sec. So here's an example. An intern at Robinhood, location, the date range, and then the job title as well. So the accomplishment statements, or the bullet pointed statements, these are the ones that we get questions on all the time. How can they really stand out? So these are just some tips and tricks for you. The first is having a strong action verb in the correct tense. So if you are not working there anymore, we recommend past tense, followed by some really key things that show impact. Quantify as much as possible. So I actually like to recommend a formula how to put this together. So you want to take an action verb plus a relevant skill plus a relevant task and show impact and or show that accomplishment. So think of it as action verb plus skill plus task equals accomplishment or impact. That's the best way to kind of approach this. When you're putting these together, also, ask yourself questions. How many, how much, how often? That'll also help you add quantifiable metrics, percentages, again, to show that impact that you made. So here's a couple good examples. Architected a new system to automate database security workflows, saving approximately 4 hours of manual work per week using Python and other internal security management tools. So in just that one bullet point, I can clearly see what their task was or what their project was, even like how long it took, the skill sets that are relevant that they used, and specific tools that they used. Awesome. So we're going to actually kind of dive into some resumes, and I hope that you all can see this okay. If you have I know it's kind of small, you can always, I think there's a way that you can like shift and just have the resume on your screen. But we're going to talk about non-technical resumes and technical resumes, and just some key things as to how they stood out. So for instance, this resume is a non-tech resume. So more than likely, just at a glance, JD student, they're probably applying to one of our legal internships. Just quickly, I can already see that this is well formatted. It has each section is very clearly identified in those reverse chronological orders. So I can clearly see the university, when the student is graduating. They included, some organizations that they're involved in. I also can see, that they have their bachelor's degree already. So right away, I can check the box that this candidate would be qualified for a summer 2022 internship. And then from there, the experience section. So again, like we talked about, the experience section is the bulk of your resume, and you can see that clearly on this person's resume. The variety of different experiences they've had. And again, just at a quick glance, I can see that they have some very relevant experience in the legal sector. And they went to the granular, and like we talked about, quantifying even how many hours they assisted attorneys, as well as, specifics as to what law offices they worked with, and even from like a measurable point, cost of reduction in each year that they helped assist with. So again, those key metrics and details are really great to see. And then at the bottom, they were able to squeeze in some skills and interests. So this is also something, I will say, especially when Chris gets to technical resumes, we do want to see a relevant skills section, especially if there are any specific softwares, technologies that are relevant to the job. This person also had space to put in interests at the very bottom, which is like kind of cool to see. But again, if you're struggling with space, that's something that can easily be removed from your resume. But overall, like very nice and clean, consistent formatting, and very relevant to something within our legal like internship opportunity. The next is another non-technical resume. And again, just at a very first glance, I can easily see from the education standpoint where the student is going to school. They're working on their MBA, will be graduating in 2022. The only thing is I don't know when in 2022. So that's why it's really important to make sure you put the month and the year of your expected graduation date, because at this point, this candidate might be a new grad if they're graduating in May, but if they're graduating in December of 2022, they might be eligible for an internship over the summer. So even before I would move forward, I'd take a look at the rest of the resume. If they look really good to be selected, even before I start them in the interview process, I would reach out to confirm, because I want to make sure they go through the correct process, whether it's an intern or a new grad process. Again, this candidate has also decided that, probably due to length or not enough space on the resume, that they've included scholarships as well as clubs and organizations that they're involved in their education section. So under each different university, which is, again, kind of a great way to save space, but also adding value. In the experience section, again, you can see that this is the meat of the resume. I particularly like how this candidate actually, for their investment principle, that they broke down their bullet points into competencies. So this is a unique way to build out a resume. And I would recommend that if you're going to do something like this, definitely have the job description and take a look at those key buzzwords and or competencies or skill sets. So what this candidate did was broke it down from strategy, research, project management, product development, and people. And then they defined what they accomplished within those competencies. So again, it's kind of a really great way to see it. They also were able to quantify like how many people were on each team that they worked with and the results. So really a unique way to showcase skill sets. And then at the bottom, they lumped in, it's just an additional section. So they have a few different things in here, which again, I guess my biggest recommendation would be if you have the space and if it's relevant, it just depends on what they're applying to. So I'll go from there. But I wanted to pass it to Chris because he's going to go into depth on a few technical resumes.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Kat. Yeah. So some of what Kat was talking about before in regards to just layout will be the same here, right? So as we look at this particular resume, once again, the formatting, education, experience, and we've got skills and interests below. But again, starting at the top with the education, very easy to read. I know really a quick glance, especially because of the bolding here, what this person is studying. Once again, with the graduation date, we know the month, right? So 6/2021, that tells me exactly when they're graduating, or at least that estimated graduation date. So I know if this person is qualified for an internship or a new grad. And in this particular case, again, this student had the space and listed the coursework, right? So coursework can be really important in regards to technical resumes. Obviously not always. However, there are times where certain courses are going to line up very nicely with the type of role and or the type of company that you're looking for. And so especially if you've got like graduate level courses, things of that nature, it would be really advantageous to put those in here. Another just kind of side note in that regard is that if recruiters are doing like keyword searches for applicants, they may very well be looking for these respective courses. I know myself, I've done this plenty of times in the past where, a manager may say, hey, listen, I know that, maybe from this particular school, these particular courses really line up well with what we're trying to find in an intern or a new grad. And so these are things that I would be looking for. Again, if you don't have the space, that's okay, right? This is one of those areas that you could cut out if space is an issue for you. But in moving down, once again, within the experience, I can easily see where they worked, what their role was. So let's just take Citadel, right? Very easy to see. They even went into putting core engineering team, right? So that is giving me as a recruiter a little bit more information. And then software engineer intern, right? So I know what space they were working in. It's not on this resume specifically, but something you may want to consider is if you're in software engineering, but there's a particular area within software engineering that you're working in, you might want to list that there. Again, that's a maybe, because you don't want to rule yourself out or pigeonhole yourself in, especially if you're looking for a multitude of different type of roles. But once again, to kind of come back to it, I know this person was a software engineer intern. I know they were part of core engineering team. Once again, with the bullet points, as Kat was talking about earlier, the structure is there. So I know this person, what they did. Again, hours saved, right? All these quantifiable things. These are things that we want to look for. As recruiters, we'd love to see that in your resume. And again, as I kind of come down, I can easily see, different companies that this person worked for. Once again, like let's take the Microsoft and Salesforce, for example, right? They're giving me that team name here. So I know exactly what team they worked in. Once again, as a recruiter, these are things that I may be looking for. I may say, oh, I know if someone worked at Microsoft in this particular team, that may very well make them, potentially anyway, a good fit here at Robinhood. So again, it kind of walks down again to the bottom with skills and interests. So as Kat alluded to earlier, this is really where, from a technical perspective, we really want to see those skills that you have, right? All the technology that programming languages, databases, anything that you have a skill in. Now, my rule of thumb on this as well is that you list those in order of proficiency, right? So if we take this resume, for example, right? Experience in C++, Python, Java, right? So on and so forth. I would love to know that this person, I can't know without asking, obviously, but I would love to be able to see those skills that they're most proficient in first, maybe even putting proficient, right? And then listing those skills that you're super proficient in. That's also another option that I've seen. But once again, the skills are super, super important. And to kind of go back and take a step back with the skills that you have, you want to make sure that any of those skills, you're also really making sure that you showcase them in the respective experience where you had it. So as an example, right, if you had experience in, I'm going to just pick JavaScript because that's towards the end, but you had experience in JavaScript. Make sure that in the body of those different experiences, wherever it was that you were utilizing JavaScript, that you make sure that either it's just flat out apparent because you've written JavaScript, or you're utilizing a sentence that is going to showcase your use of JavaScript. Because again, we're looking for those keywords as recruiters, because when I'm looking for example on web, I'm looking for folks with JavaScript, I'm looking for folks with React, and I want to be able to see that. And again, we are filtering out resumes within applicant tracking systems based on these skills, right? And based on these keywords. So if you do not have them there, you run the risk of your resume just not even getting the opportunity to get looked at by a recruiter. Okay, so make sure that the skills are there. Again, here you can see that they've got another couple of bullet points, but not a, oh no, no worries, but not a big deal. Again, at the bottom, skills and interests. So I think we have another one as well, so we can move to that one, Kat.
There we go. Okay.
Yep. Perfect. Yeah, no worries. So once again, I can't stress enough how important it is to really get these sections, right? Because you look at this and okay, education, work experience, leadership. I mean, they do have this bar that runs across. I personally like that because visually it really blocks those things off for me. But even if you didn't have space for that, having these sections bolded, left justified, it really just offsets it for me as a recruiter to know exactly where my eye is going to take me to those respective areas. So let's start at the top here, education, right? So we talked about this earlier multiple times, but we don't have a month that ties into these years, right? Another thing is these are not in reverse chronological order, right? So university, then we've got bachelor's, then we've got master's. I would much rather, potentially see this flipped, and then also having the months tied in with those years, so that I know it. Another thing you may think about doing is either bolding or italicizing those degree plans. I know it's not on this resume, but we're just using it as a jumping off point. But if you bold or italicize that, it will kind of break it apart from just the school name. So that's something you can think about, right? So once again, though, the biggest takeaway on this, reverse chronological order and month tied to year, so that we know exactly when that graduation is. As we move down into work experience, again, kind of similar to what we talked about before, I can tell quickly where this person worked, what type of work. So the first one, quantitative trading intern, boom, okay, I know the company, I know the location, and I know when they worked there, right? That's perfect. And then we've got a bullet point underneath that, really speaking to the work that they did. The one thing, and again, it all depends on space, but the one thing I would maybe recommend on this particular resume, if I saw it, was on that first one, maybe a second bullet point, right? Because you tend to have 2 bullet points on the other positions and experience. So, just kind of keeping that same format potentially. But if it doesn't, if you don't have anything that's really relevant to put in there, that's okay as well. But again, very easy to see, right? I know exactly where they worked. I know what they did. Facebook software engineering intern, for example, and I know when they did it, right? Approved reliability, functionality of the main ads pipeline, right? So this is speaking to the type of work that they did, and giving me as a recruiter at least a really fair understanding of the type of work. And of course, we can dig into that more later. In this particular resume, we've got leadership experience as the next section. So this is one as a recruiter we definitely are looking for, right? So I'm looking for folks that have taken on leadership roles, whether that's leadership in a student organization, whether that's leadership in a project, whether that's you, for example, maybe you've developed apps with a group on campus, or shoot, maybe even started your own kind of side app development company, for example, right? So what is your role in that, right? Because just because you're a part of it is one thing, but the second part is, what did you actually do within that? So I really like this in the sense that, I can see exactly what it is. President, co-founder, senior manager, right? It really gives me an idea that this person is going above and beyond just the standard work that they have to do, or the standard schoolwork that they have to do, for example, right? And again, I like how it's broken out, where you've got some bolding to really call it out. You've got these little line breaks in between, so it kind of separates role and company and location, time frame. Once again, because that could easily just get jumbled up together, but just having that little break, that's only one line, and it doesn't take up much room on your resume at all from a spacing perspective. But yet, from the eye, it really helps us as recruiters to be able to see. So again, really like that if you have the space for that leadership. And then lastly, here on the bottom, once again, we've got skills and we've got certifications. Skills are here. Once again, it's really, really important that you have these here. You may, again, want to list that in proficiency order, right? From most proficient to less proficient, right? Because if I'm looking for somebody, again, we'll just use JavaScript and React. If I see that towards the beginning, great. But if it's towards the end, there is the chance that I miss it. I'd like to say I don't miss those things as recruiters, but there is that chance, right? If it's towards the end of that line. And then lastly, certifications, right? So this is really important as well, especially from a technical perspective. Depending on the role that you're looking for, there may be certifications that you've garnered or that you're working towards. And this is really, really important for a lot of different technical roles. So just kind of think through that. Once again, we're really trying to condense this resume to one page, which this person has done, and then really think about the most important pieces of information. I will say there's also kind of a newer style, if you will, that I've been seeing a lot when it comes to the skills, is that let's just take, for example, if I go up to the quantitative trading intern, right? So either on that same line, like in parentheses, or a line below it, I've seen many students just have a list of skills that they've used in that respective role, right? So if you use JavaScript, React, maybe TypeScript, it's going to say like skills used. That's also another really great way for you to showcase, not only do I have this skill, but now I'm showcasing to the recruiter where exactly I use that skill, right? Because let's just say you've got 4 different internships. Well, if you use that skill on your very first internship, but then you haven't used that skill in like the last 3 internships, right? I kind of want to know that, right? What have you used more recently, right? So again, I think formatting wise, this is, you know, a really good format on the eye. Again, we kind of touched on areas that could be improved, but overall, I think this is a really clean and concise resume. And as a recruiter, you know, I would definitely be interested in, you know, continuing to move forward with this candidate, of course, on the assumption that it's a fit for the role that I'm comparing it against. But anyway, I think that that does it for that one, Kat.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great. So we can, those are really good tips. I agree. That's a good point that you brought up, like having the specific like skills. I've seen them like italicized or something like that, like in the work experience. So yeah, really good call out. But we have a bunch of questions that have came through. So let's just start with the one that came in about 25 minutes ago. This is a good one. So are there internships for freshmen in university? I've noticed positions are for current juniors. So that's a great call out. You know, definitely look at the job descriptions of where you're applying. I mean, that's really your cheat sheet. So I would say just in general, the answer is yes, for the most part. We are looking for, you know, those rising seniors. So that summer in between junior and senior year, or that summer right after your first year of grad school. The main reason for this is we do see our internship as a funnel for full-time conversions. So you can still apply as a freshman or sophomore. But again, that is just something that just to keep in mind. We have hired exceptional freshmen and sophomores in the past. So don't be discouraged, but also just know that, you know, it is not super typical for us. So yeah, I don't know, Chris, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, no, just all of that. But just to add, right, the biggest thing on that is really just we're looking also for students that have a certain level of experience already that then kind of parlay into what Kat was saying in regards to putting them basically in a very good position to be converted. So, you know, if you happen to be a sophomore, but you have a lot of really relevant experience and great experience, and who knows, maybe you've already done a couple of internships, right? Still feel free to apply because, you know, we do have interns as well. Not as many, but we have some that would, you know, get a returning internship offer because they're eligible, right, to do another internship instead of, you know, that conversion to new grad. But yeah, absolutely. Predominantly, we're looking for juniors. But again, if you have the experience, go ahead and apply. It can't hurt, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So next question for those of us that don't have internship experience, what do you suggest we put in that spot on our resume? Yeah, we get this question all the time. So, you know, that's okay. I would definitely recommend, you know, looking at class projects or personal projects that you've done and emphasizing and elaborating on those. So you can have, you know, a relevant project section and break it down and set it up just like you would a work experience. So, you know, the name of the project, where you did this project. So if it was at, you know, your university, the date range, so probably within a semester or a quarter, and then you can build out accomplishment statements just like you would work experience on your projects. So it could be, again, class projects, personal projects, or even research that you've done, or anything like that's connected to like a student organization or a club or affiliation like that. Yeah, what do you think, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of took some of that. What I was going to say too is it sounds like maybe we've got some freshmen, we've got some sophomores here on the call. And I think one of the things you've always got to be thinking about is what student organizations can you become a part of, right? What leadership opportunities can you grab within these student organizations? To Kat's, you know, point, this is a good opportunity. You can list those, right? And so, just like she mentioned, break it out as if you would your experience as an intern. Also, if you don't have that internship experience, this should kind of help motivate you as well to go and do other things, right? Again, joining those clubs or doing those projects, or, develop your own app if you're, looking for app development. So to help kind of fill that gap, because I realize it can be a little daunting to try to fill that space. But one of the things I've seen students do is just have like experience as that section, right? So like experience is a fairly general word. Okay, great. And then whatever that experience is, and you've got that in order, we're not looking for you to put your high school job in there, right? Unless it's really technically relevant. But again, all these others. So yeah, I think those are all between, kind of Kat and what I just said. I think those are good opportunities to help you fill that space.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I did type this answer in, but I figured I would answer it live. So there's a question about if we sponsor international students. The answer is yes. So we are a visa-friendly company. Just let your recruiter know once you get to that point in time during the interview process. There are some questions too in the application that we'll ask. But yeah, we are visa-friendly. So just, let your recruiter know.
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, I can jump on this one here, Kat.
Okay,
so
cool.
yeah, for Kyle. So what if my current experience is in nursing, right? And pivoting careers into tech, but I don't have that work experience at the moment. So kind of what you do. I mean, I think we've spoken a little bit to some of these things already. I think one of the things you can do also is write a really compelling cover letter, right? And talk about why you want to make this shift from nursing into tech, right? I think that will really help you go a long way. And again, use some of these tips we've already talked about, right? So Kyle, your question. So, try to join groups or try to get some projects or try to do some things on your own that you can start to then lay on top of that. Because, I mean, yes, it's good. And maybe what you think about, potentially is you still have like a section in that experience where, it's like nursing from, I'm just going to make up years, like 2018 to 2021, nursing. And you just kind of keep that vague, right? Because, or just kind of keep it simple, because it's not really relevant to the role that you're looking for. However, it does show a recruiter, hey, this individual was doing something during this period of time. And then Kyle, if you can lay on top of that these other things that we're talking about, then it's going to show myself or Kat as a recruiter, oh, okay, this person was in this space and now they're making this pivot into tech, and that helps to kind of, let me know what's going on here and why maybe they don't have the internship experience. However, you have relatable skills and you have transferable skills, right? So also trying to find opportunities to identify those transferable skills and make that either into your cover letter and or into your resume.
Exactly.
Feel free to add.
Yeah, and Chris, you brought it up previously, but definitely getting involved in student organizations, especially with you making that pivot. This is like student organizations too, not just from like experience on your resume, but also just from that peer-to-peer interaction and meeting other people that are in the major and talking to them about what internships or what companies are they interested in. And so many student organizations have companies come speak, and so you start to build up your network that way too. So start thinking about those things as well, because it'll help your network, help you connect with other recruiters and other people in tech, but also that peer-to-peer just relationships and advice you can get from maybe somebody that's a junior or a senior. That'll really help you as well, and they can give you additional advice as to how to boost up your transition and your resume at this point. So
yeah, awesome. Yes. Next one, I think we got, what tips can you give for creating a good LinkedIn profile? We actually have a whole nother session, not for this particular, but we have a session on this actually.
That's a good call out. Let me see if I can find the invite and send it.
Okay. Yeah. We have a session on this one. There's a lot of things you can do. In short, I will say you should be as active as possible on LinkedIn as a student. You should make sure that your profile is created out. If you want to, for example, like go check out my LinkedIn profile, go check out Kat's LinkedIn profile. I know I linked mine in the chat feature earlier. But, things very, very simply, just off the top of my head, right? A good photo, right, of yourself right there in LinkedIn. They have like the banner pictures. I always recommend find something cool to put in that banner picture because it just draws attention. But kind of similar to what we're talking about with resumes, right? Making sure that your profile is laid out, that it's speaking to your experience. I always say that LinkedIn is that place where, you've tried to work on getting your resume condensed down to one page, but there's all this other stuff that you could put in there. Well, LinkedIn is the place to do that, right? So putting in all that other stuff for LinkedIn, that's another really great. So again, kind of look at our profiles, look at other, you could really just search other engineers, right? And companies, looking at senior engineers, like they probably have a pretty decent profile if they're at that level. But yeah, we have a whole nother session on LinkedIn profiles, but I really recommend, one of the things I did years back when I started was I just started copying other people's stuff, right? There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. And then one thing as well, just to add, is like be active in regards to sharing information, articles, your information, right? And just staying active, commenting on people's stuff, right? Because it's all algorithm, right? So you want to make sure that you're doing things like that to stay relevant. But those are just a couple quick things without taking up the rest of this time on that one.
Yeah, I can't find, I'm not sure when we're having that event.
Well, I know we did one. Well, we did one, so maybe that was it, Kat.
Oh,
I did one like last week.
I was gonna say, I actually did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris is awesome with LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I will say too, just like to echo everything that Chris said, is especially if you're struggling with space on your resume, your LinkedIn profile is where you can expand upon every section, and there's no limit to, how many bullet points you can have on LinkedIn. So, that's why have your URL in your header and so if, there are areas on your resume that you just don't have enough space to expand upon, you can do that on your LinkedIn because it's your LinkedIn, it's your profile to really expand on. So.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. I think we touched on this with like the non-tech. So the question was, should I list experience if it's non-technical one? If you feel like it's relevant to the job, or if you feel like it's going to fill that gap, like we talked about earlier with the nursing, I think that's okay. If it's not relevant to the job and it doesn't really showcase anything for you specifically, I wouldn't put it. It's just taking up space. That's just my opinion. Kat, you may have a different opinion on that.
No, I couldn't agree more. If it's showcasing, potentially some soft skills that are listed on the job description, potentially. But again, if you can emphasize your relevant experience and show the technical experience as well as soft skills, if it's something that doesn't align with the position and is maybe just taking up space, I would agree. Definitely think about it before you keep it on there. And then I know there was a question about cybersecurity options or opportunities. And yes, so I did link our careers website. So we do have security internship and new grad roles that are posted. If work from home now, should we put remote or the company location? I've seen this actually like both ways, putting where the company is located, so the city and state, but then maybe in parentheses or in italics, putting that you're working remotely. So I would recommend doing both. And if you don't have spacing issues, it shouldn't be an issue. But it is good for us to see because I think we kind of just assume that most internships are remote, but there are still a lot out there that are now, pivoting back to work. So, but yeah, what do you think, Chris?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to say the exact same thing. I think having a listing of where that company is and then remote would be good, right? Because it tells exactly what it is, right? It was a company in this area and you're doing it remotely like we all are. So I think that's a perfect way to say that, Kat.
Awesome.
I can take the next one here for tech resume. So for tech resume, if you don't have this much of work experience, can I add project section? And if so, what formatting? So the answer is yes, you can add a project section. Absolutely. Formatting is going to be very similar to what we already covered, right? I think that the standard, hopefully you're it's rinse and repeat, right? It's the same type of formatting. every single time. I mean, you may change it up. You may put the company first, the position first, or with a project, right? School, or what the project name was, right? So those things can kind of change. But in general, it's like a header, right? And then bullet points underneath that. So I would absolutely have projects. The one thing I would say about projects, though, is to make sure that you are listing what it is that you specifically did, right? Because so many of you know that you're all doing the same project. And we see resumes over and over and over. Oh, yeah, did this project, did this project. Okay, fine. Yep, that's great. But what did you actually do? Because what's going to happen is you're going to get in an interview, and the interviewer is going to ask you what you did. And so, you know, if you can already showcase that on paper, that just helps you. It also helps us as recruiters to know what role you played in that project.
Exactly. Yep. I totally agree. Let's see. Oh, I just lost it.
That's okay. I got it. So the next one was, all of your examples showed individuals with post-undergrad education. Is it less likely for a person with only an undergrad degree to get an internship? The answer is no, right? It just so happens that those are just our examples. But no, we hire undergrads all the time. I would say probably in my world, I see way more undergrads than I do even see grads. So yeah, don't be concerned about that at all if you're just an undergrad. Yeah,
definitely.
Yep. Front end question, I can take that too. As a front end developer, how much of the back end side of things am I supposed to be familiar with in order to work in the industry? That's a loaded question because I can't speak to other companies. But at Robinhood, if you're front end, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for front end, right? So I'm not really that concerned. Like, I know a lot of times students will have full stack experience. Okay, great. That's totally fine. It just shows me that, yeah, you have a little bit of understanding of how the back end works. As a front end engineer, I mean, you are going to be, especially if you're looking at web, right? Because you mentioned React, so I'm assuming it's going to be more web focused. You know, you are going to have to partner with iOS, Android, maybe a little bit of back end, but your in-depth knowledge doesn't necessarily need to be there. Now, if you have any knowledge, obviously that helps you as a developer because you can kind of see around the bend, or at least you can kind of anticipate what you're doing and how that's going to impact other teams or the product from a visual perspective or back-end perspective. But I'm not looking for you as a front-end developer to have a ton of back-end experience.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you're in good hands with Chris. Next question is around a cover letter. So is a cover letter required or necessary with the resume? So actually, none of our applications, at least at this point, require a cover letter. I will say I particularly like them in the sense that, again, it's going to be able to allow you to showcase so a lot of things that you can't talk about and or express on your resume. So number one is your story. So your specific story. And, you know, one key thing that we look for in our candidates is that they are passionate and excited about Robinhood and our mission. And you can't showcase that in a resume, but in a cover letter, you know, that can really be where you can express those passions, those interests in the fintech space, specifically at Robinhood. And again, tell your story. So think about a cover letter almost as your elevator pitch in writing, where you're talking about, you know, a little bit about your past, your present, and your future. So I, again, like personally, I really do like cover letters. I think it can add a lot of volume to your application, as well as I know we had a few students ask questions about, you know, shifting careers and, you know, that cover letter too is going to be able for you to tell your story and why you're pivoting and or from past experiences that are relevant and what you're currently doing and what your future goals are that we can't just see in a resume. So yeah, if it is, I will say though, they can be difficult to write. So make sure you follow a lot of the same tips we already gave you. You know, work with your career services office. I'm sure they have templates and can help you put one together. Proofread, because you're actually writing sentences. And also if you're going to send them out, make sure that you include the right company and don't send us your cover letter that was supposed to go to another tech company. Make sure that it is addressed to Robinhood. What are your thoughts on cover letters, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I think that if it's relevant, like, you know, in Kyle, we were talking about your situation earlier, right? I think that a cover letter is really important for you. I think that if your resume can really speak to your experience and it lines up with the job and or the company, I don't know that it's really necessary, right? I wouldn't give it too much thought or spend too much time on that. But yeah, it can be something that can really help you, but also it can really hurt you. You put the wrong company name, that's not a good look, right? So there's that. I know we had one other last one here, Kat, so for Dora, and so I personally can't speak to the PM roles. I don't know anything about them. So Kat, I don't know if you have any knowledge or can speak to that at all.
So for PM, at this point, no. I know that I was given the heads up, and in fact, I don't think either of us are the recruiters for PM. I think they're supposed to have interns. I'm not 100% sure when they'll be posted. However, we will not be recruiting new grads for any PM roles. So internships, hopefully to be determined later this fall, or possibly into the first quarter of 2022. So just in general, I'll give all of you the blanket statement again to please continue to check our careers website. That is where you can find all of our current internship and new grad postings, and any that will be coming up. We only have about a minute left, so I did just repost that in the chat. But this was, I mean, great questions. I just want to say, like, thanks again for showing up on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're excited to see all the new applicants come through.
Yeah, absolutely. Just say thanks again, just like Kat did. Thank you for Kat and I both linked our information here. We've got the careers page here. We are actively recruiting, so apply now if you have not already applied. We are actively recruiting against our roles for next year. So again, thanks everybody. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your time at ShellHacks, and hopefully we'll see your names come across our desk soon.
Thanks. Awesome. Bye.
Bye everybody.